Hi, if you've ever wondered why the obelisks all around the world have those little pyramids on top and what the significance of those pyramids might be, well, this video is going to be for you today because today we're going to be exploring the sacred geometry of the pyramids that we find on top of obelisks. Hi, this is Charlie Zeiss with Stargate Pyramids. For those of you who've been watching some of my other videos, you know that I've been doing a lot of research in the last several months depicting and finding the sacred geometry of Stargate Pyramids, the geometry of creation, the Phi Scaling Angle, in a lot of different objects around the world, including temples, pyramids, DNA, light refraction, and a whole bunch of other areas. One area that I had not looked at until recently was obelisks, which we find all around the world. For one thing, it was difficult to get precision with the MB Ruler Protractor app. So it's kind of kept me from being able to do that research until recently. But as I've become more proficient and had a little bit more time, I've been able to put that research together. And one of the interesting conclusions that I've come to is that yet again, when we look at the pyramids on top of obelisks from ancient Egypt and around the world, we once again find the sacred geometry, the 76.345 degree slant angle that we found throughout Hindu and Buddhist temples and all other religious traditions and in other areas of our world around us. So I wanted to show you that information, and let's get started. This is a picture of our Washington Monument. We're going to get to that in a few minutes. But to start our presentation today, I wanted to start in ancient Egypt because there again, this is a location where these obelisks originated. And there's some interesting history about obelisks in general that I want to impart to you, as well as the sacred geometry of the pyramids on top of these obelisks. So to begin with, let's talk, get some definitions as to what an Egyptian obelisk is all about. An obelisk is a stone rectangular pillar with a tapered top forming a pyramidion or a pyramid set on a base erected to commemorate an individual or event and to honor the gods. The ancient Egyptians created this form at some point in the early dynastic period, which starts around 3000 BCE, following their work in mud brick mastaba tombs and prior to the construction of the step pyramids. It's thought that the earliest obelisks served as a kind of training for working in stone on monumental projects, which was a necessary step towards pyramid building. Now, one of the key factors to remember is that obelisks generally were found in pairs, and that's significant as we go forward in determining what's happened to a lot of these obelisks over time. Now, the first obelisks we're going to look at are from one of the two famous Egyptian temples. This one is the Temple of Karnak in Egypt. You see here the dual obelisks in the background after the ruins of the Temple of Karnak itself. And of course, as we've done in the past, I've used the MB ruler here. We've done a close-up of the pyramid structure on top of the obelisk and measured the slant angle of that. And we've come up with 76.32 degrees. For those of you who've been watching this before, you know that the precision of the MB ruler is a function of the quality of the photograph. And because the pyramids in general on the top of the obelisk are such a small proportion of the photo, it's going to be in all of these depictions a little bit more difficult to get exact precision because we have to blow the picture up so much that the pixelation starts to break down. But you're going to see, in this case, these Temple of Karnak pyramid on top of the obelisk is 76.32 in this example. Now, here's another obelisk. This one is actually located in Istanbul, Turkey, But this Theodosius obelisk actually originally came from the Temple of Karnak and was moved to Istanbul later. And once again, we've taken a measurement there. We've got 76.19 degrees. A little bit more difficult to get a straight-on photograph of this particular obelisk, but clearly within the range of error for our 76.345 degree calculation of the geometry of the Stargate and Russian pyramids. And now we're going to move on to the Luxor Temple, which is the other great ancient temple located in Egypt. You'll only see one obelisk here, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But you can see here that, again, the pyramid at the top of that obelisk has a slant angle of 76.3 degrees. Now, the other twin of that obelisk was actually moved from the location in Luxor to Paris, France in the 19th century. And here we see a picture, and it's called the Cleopatra's Needle, located in Paris, France. We're going to talk about two other obelisks that are called Cleopatra's Needle as well in a few moments. But this is the twin of the obelisk that we just saw in Luxor, and as well, we were able to get a much more straight-on view of that, and we've got the geometry at 76.35 degrees. Now we're going to move on to two obelisks, one in New York and one in London. They are also twins, but also called Cleopatra's Needle, although they are not identical to the ones that we saw from Luxor. In fact, these two Cleopatra's Needle obelisks are actually from Heliopolis in Egypt as well. But they are twins and were given to both the United States and placed in New York on one case, and London with the British government in the other in the 19th century. So when we look at the Cleopatra's Needle, one of the interesting aspects, as I was doing research on this particular obelisk, I found this photograph, and it helped me to understand why initially I was having difficulty getting a geometry that seemed to match that one in London, because apparently the obelisk in New York City has deteriorated quite significantly. If you look at a picture from the 1870s when it was originally constructed, and the top of the obelisk now, you can see that there's been some deterioration in the top of that obelisk. That was rectified in a recent reconstruction and rehabilitation of the obelisk. But when we go and check the geometry back from the original 1870s, I had to turn the protractor upside down. So that's why you're seeing a 283.69. But if you subtract that from 360 degrees, this was really the only way to get the number to show up on the page. We're getting a slant angle of 76.31 degrees on this obelisk that's located in New York City. And similarly, the twin obelisk that's located in London, here's a picture of it. We're getting a slant angle of 76.5 degrees. Again, both within the margin of error of the NB ruler, given the quality of the pictures available at the top of these obelisks. Now, here is the most important obelisk in the United States, and that's namely the Washington Monument. The Washington Monument, as you can see, has a pyramidal structure that looks identical to those that we found in the previous Egyptian hieroglyphs. And when we go to measure it, sure enough, we're finding that the slant angle of the pyramid on top of the Washington Monument is 76.31 degrees. Now we're going to look at some other obelisks. These are from South America. Interesting that there's a number of these obelisks that are located in South America. One is the Julio Avenue obelisk in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Here we see a picture of it with traffic flowing around it in the center of Sao Paulo. the slant angle of the pyramid at the top of the obelisk, 76.33 degrees. Here's another obelisk in Buenos Aires, Argentina, again in the center of the city, and we see a slant angle of 76.3 degrees. And another, the Founders Obelisk in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and again, a slant angle of 76.3 degrees. So all of these pyramid obelisks, which have pyramids at the top, are demonstrating this very geometry that we found in the Stargate Pyramids, in the geometry of creation and the Phi Scaling Angle that we've discussed previously. So it's finally, we're going to look at the George Washington National Masonic Memorial. This is not an obelisk, but it looks very similar at the top to the pyramid that we see at the top of obelisks around the world. And as we measure that geometry as well, it's 76.35 degrees. So clearly, the ancient Egyptians knew about this, as we've discussed before. There are hieroglyphs also at the Temple of Karnak that have been discovered that have this slant angle of 76.345 degrees. So this geometry was projected onto the ancient obelisks and the pyramids that are at the top. I don't know the significance of why they put it there, but clearly the builders of these obelisks knew that this was a significant geometry, and I feel that they felt it was important enough to display it and demonstrate it in these structures throughout ancient Egypt. So once again, another proof of the significance of the geometry of the Stargate Pyramids is found here in the geometry of the pyramids on top of ancient obelisks. I hope this information is helpful. As always, tell your friends about Stargate Pyramids. Subscribe to Stargate Pyramids if you haven't done so before. Ring the bell and like our videos. We thank you for watching, and you have a great day.